Ready to dive into Brené Brown's The Gifts of Imperfection? We're going deep on self-acceptance and resilience and figuring out what this wholehearted living thing is all about.
I love this book. Brown's research is so solid, but then she brings in these personal stories, and it's like she's talking right to you.
It is, and she tackles those big questions we all have, like how do we live authentically? Or find the courage to be ourselves, even when it feels scary? And how do we even start being more compassionate, starting with ourselves?
And it's practical. She doesn't just throw out definitions of courage or compassion. She shows you what they look like in everyday life. You actually walk away with something to work with.
Okay, so let's get into this wholehearted living thing, because that really hit me. It's not about being perfect, is it?
Not at all. It's about recognizing that we're imperfect, that vulnerability is part of being human. Wholehearted living is about letting go of that pressure to be perfect and choosing to live with intention, on purpose.
That's why people connect with her work so much. It's not be perfect, but more like, hey, we're all works in progress. Let's figure this out together.
Totally. And she's right there with us. Sharing her own struggles makes it way less intimidating.
Like a wise friend walking you through it. One thing that got me was how she defines love. It's not just a feeling, it's something you do.
Right. And that's so powerful because it flips the script. We're not waiting for someone to love us perfectly. It's about choosing to treat ourselves with respect, kindness, all that good stuff.
It's about building that love from the inside out.
Hmm.
Okay, so Brown calls courage, compassion, and connection the gifts of imperfection. She's basically saying these aren't rewards for being perfect. They come from us being willing to be imperfect.
Mind blown, right? We think we have to be flawless to deserve those things. But she's saying the opposite. Leaning into our imperfections unlocks them.
What if the fear of not being good enough is the thing stopping us from real courage and connection?
She puts it perfectly. We can choose courage or we can choose comfort, but we can't have both.
Now, this story she tells about bombing a talk and her sister Ashley's reaction. Perfect example of how vulnerability and connection can make you stronger. Imagine giving this disastrous presentation, you're totally mortified.
And Ashley doesn't try to fix her. No unsolicited advice. She just listens. Make space for Brown to be vulnerable, share all that shame and disappointment without judgment.
Sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is just be there in their darkness, not as a rescuer, but just another human being.
And that's what builds shame resilience. Brown goes deep into shame, that I am bad feeling and how it stops us from living wholehearted lives.
But she doesn't just drop the bad news on us. She gives us strategies for building shame resilience, like figuring out what triggers your shame, how you react to it.
Because we all experience shame. It's part of being human, but it doesn't have to run the show. Brown gives us tools to deal with it in a healthy way.
She even talks about getting this nasty email, and instead of firing back a defensive reply, she just sits with those hurt feelings. It takes serious guts to respond to shame like that.
It's easy to get pulled into that blame game. But Brown says we have a choice. React from fear, defensiveness, or lean into vulnerability, reach out.
Which brings us to another biggie, authenticity. She defines it as the daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we actually are.
Showing up as your true self, even when it's scary. Accepting that not everyone will like you, and that's okay.
Tough stuff though, right? Especially with social media and everyone presenting these perfect versions of themselves. So much pressure to perform.
But what if the fear of not being good enough is the thing stopping us from being our most authentic selves? Imagine what could happen if we let go of that pressure.
Something to think about for sure. And then there's Brown's research on numbing. We all have ways we avoid tough emotions. Food, work, the internet. But she argues that we end up numbing ourselves to the good stuff too.
Yeah, you numb the pain, you numb the joy. It's a cycle. The key is to catch those numbing behaviors and find healthier ways to cope when things are tough.
Remember that vowel check she talks about, AEIOUI? It helps you be mindful about how you're using your time and energy.
Such a good one. Each vowel is like a check-in. Abstinent from numbing. Exercise. Done something for yourself, for others. Unexpressed emotions. And yeah, one good thing that happened today.
I'm trying it out. It really helps you pause and see how you're showing up in your life. And speaking of things we might be numbing ourselves to, Brown says joy is more than just fleeting happiness.
It's deeper. It's about gratitude, connection, that sense of contentment that helps you through the tough times.
So it's not just feeling happy in the moment, it's cultivating a state of being.
And you have to put in the work. gratitude meditations, journaling, even just saying thank you to the people around you.
She quotes this theologian, A.J. Swoboda, who calls joy the good mood of the soul. It's not about what's happening around you, it's about what's happening inside you.
And you can build that, even when things are hard. Speaking of things we might be missing out on, what about play and rest? I could really use permission to do more of those.
Right. Our culture is obsessed with being busy, but Brown says play and rest aren't luxuries. They're essential for wholehearted living.
She brings in Dr. Stuart Brown's research on play, how it helps us be creative, solve problems, even be more empathetic. Plus, all the research on sleep deprivation and how bad it is for us, it's a wake-up call.
Remember when I cut back my work hours and my daughter was convinced something was wrong? It's crazy how deeply ingrained that busyness is good thing is.
Totally. We've forgotten how to rest and play. Brown's saying we have to reevaluate, make time for things that bring us joy and give our bodies a break.
And she doesn't sugarcoat it. She calls exhaustion as a status symbol a crazy-ass myth. We gotta let go of that.
Time to reclaim our time and energy, live more intentionally.
And that ties into her exploration of meaningful work. It's not just about finding a job you love, but about making sure your work matches your values, using your talents to contribute to the world.
And a huge part of that is ditching the supposed to, those things holding you back from doing work that truly lights you up.
This was fascinating. She found that connecting your gifts to the world can make you feel connected to something bigger than yourself, like a spiritual connection.
Finding that sweet spot where your passions and skills meet a need in the world, it takes courage to go for that, even when you doubt yourself or have to let go of what you thought you should be doing.
She has this great tip for dealing with self-doubt. Write down all those negative thoughts holding you back, then ask, who says? Why am I letting these beliefs control my choices?
It's about taking back control, defining success your own way.
And speaking of giving ourselves permission, one of the most joyful parts of the Gifts of Imperfection, maybe even unexpected, is how much Brown talks about laughing, singing, dancing.
I know, right? She calls them exercises in vulnerability. Like,
Yeah.
they remind us we're not alone. When was the last time you laughed so hard you cried, or belted out a song without caring who was listening?
Or danced like nobody was watching.
What?
It's about connecting to that true self, remembering the simple joy of being alive.
Brown's challenging us to let go of trying to be cool and embrace that joy and connection, even if it feels silly. Like reclaiming that childlike sense of wonder and playfulness.
It's a reminder that life's too short to pretend to be someone you're not. We're all a little messy, a little awkward, and that's more than okay.
It's in those imperfections that we find our strengths, our deepest connections.
So what's sticking with you from this dive into Brown's work? What's resonating? What feels challenging?
Take a second to think about it. What supposed tos might be holding you back? What would it look like to have more courage, compassion, and connection in your life?
And what's one tiny thing you can do today to get a little closer to wholehearted living? Offer yourself some compassion, laugh a little louder, dance a little freer.
Remember, wholehearted living isn't a destination, it's a journey. It's about embracing the messiness, building your resilience, and choosing to show up as your true self every single day.
And reminding yourself that you are already enough, exactly as you are. Now, we have these other sources you gave us, and they shed some light on this idea of wholehearted living, too. One that caught my eye was about ordinary courage. It seems to echo a lot of what Brown talks about.
What's cool about ordinary courage is that it challenges how we usually think about courage. Like, it's not just for heroes, you know. It says that courage can be found in the everyday choices we make. Showing up authentically, being vulnerable, speaking our truth, even when it's scary.
Like those little acts of bravery we don't even think about. Stepping outside your comfort zone, challenging yourself, standing up for what you believe in, even if it makes you uncomfortable.
And the amazing thing is that these small acts can ripple outwards. They inspire other people to do the same, building this culture of bravery and authenticity.
I love the story Brown tells about her son's preschool. Parents had to write what their kid was good at on this big sheet of paper. And one parent, instead of focusing on her kid's strengths, just rants about what the school is doing wrong.
Classic example of someone projecting their own insecurities onto others. Brown admits that at first she wanted to impress this parent, prove herself with all her research credentials.
So relatable, we've all been there, trying to win over someone who just wants to find fault.
But then Brown realized that real courage wasn't about winning this parent over. It was about staying true to herself and her message.
It was about knowing she didn't need that parent's approval to be worthy. Her worthiness came from within.
And it was about having the guts to be vulnerable, to share her own experiences and insights, even though she might be criticized.
It's a great example of how ordinary courage shows up in everyday life. It's about choosing authenticity over needing approval, even when it's hard.
And knowing that your worth isn't based on what other people think, it comes from inside you.
Ordinary courage, it makes courage feel possible, like something we can all work on every day. Have you come across other examples of this in your research or your own life?
One that pops into my head is the courage to set boundaries. Saying no to people is so hard, especially when you don't want to disappoint them or mess things up.
But boundaries are so important. To protect your time, energy, your emotional well-being, it's about understanding that you have a right to say no to take care of yourself, even if it means saying no to others.
And then you have to actually stand by those boundaries, even when people push back or try to guilt you into changing your mind. That takes courage.
Totally. Another example of ordinary courage. Speaking up for what you believe in, even when it's not popular. Using your voice to advocate for justice, equality, compassion.
And remembering that silence can be complicity. We have a responsibility to speak out against injustice, even when it feels risky.
Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply be yourself. No apologies, no explanations.
Embracing your quirks, your passion, your values, letting the world see the real you.
And knowing that your worthiness doesn't come from fitting in or following the rules. It comes from just being you.
Now, one theme that keeps coming up in all these sources is the idea of letting go. Brown talks about letting go of perfectionism, numbing, scarcity, the need to be certain, comparison, exhaustion, self-doubt, the need to be cool. She says real freedom comes from letting go of these things that are holding us back.
It's like she's encouraging us to shed all the layers of conditioning we've picked up over the years, the beliefs and behaviors that are no longer serving us.
It's about loosening the grip of fear, shame, self-judgment, letting yourself be fully present in the moment.
Embracing your imperfections, celebrating your strengths, acknowledging your limitations.
And trusting that you're exactly where you're supposed to be on your journey, even when it feels messy or uncertain.
Letting go, it's challenging, but so liberating. Imagine letting go of needing to be perfect, to please everyone, to have everything under control.
What would become possible if we let go of fear and embraced uncertainty?
What if we were fully present in each moment, experienced joy without holding back, connected with others authentically, created without judging ourselves, rested without feeling guilty?
What a powerful vision.
It is a vision of a world where we're all free to be ourselves, to live wholeheartedly, to embrace this messy, beautiful journey of life.
And you brought up these other insightful excerpts from different sources that back up this idea of wholehearted living. One quote that really hit me was from Dr. Stuart Brown, the guy who founded the National Institute for Play. He said, "The opposite of play is not work. The opposite of play is depression."
Wow. That's powerful. It changes how we think about play. It's not just frivolous or a waste of time. Dr. Brand's research shows that play is vital for our well-being, physically, mentally, emotionally.
It's how we learn, how we connect, how we solve problems, how we create, how we recharge. When we deny ourselves play, we're missing out on joy, creativity, connection.
We need to remember to make time for play, no matter how busy we are.
Exactly. Spending time with loved ones, hobbies, exploring nature, just being silly and spontaneous. It's all essential for a wholehearted life.
Another quote that really got me was from Anne Lamott. She describes laughter as carbonated holiness.
Oh, I love that image. It captures laughter as something sacred, connecting us to our humanity and something bigger than ourselves.
Laughter is such a powerful antidote to stress, fear, cynicism. It helps us not take ourselves too seriously, to find joy in the midst of challenges, to appreciate the absurdity of it all.
And it reminds us that connection and joy can show up anywhere. Those shared moments of laughter and absurdity, they bring us together.
Speaking of connection, one of the sources you gave us talks about the difference between just being communicative and actually feeling connected, how in this tech-driven world we mistake constant communication for real connection.
So true. You can be glued to your devices, texting, emailing, scrolling through social media, and still feel totally alone.
It says that real connection needs presence, vulnerability, and empathy. Being fully present with the people you care about, really listening, sharing your own experiences authentically.
Making space for those real heart-to-heart connections where you can be yourself, no judgment, no pretending.
And remembering that technology can help us connect, but it's not a replacement for real human interaction.
Especially in this world where we're bombarded with information and stimulation constantly, it's easy to forget how important face-to-face connection is.
Another source connects spirituality and resilience. It says that spirituality, the belief in connection, A power greater than yourself, interconnectedness based on love and compassion, was found to be a key part of resilience.
So interesting. It shows how much we need meaning and purpose to feel connected to something that goes beyond our own experiences.
Whether it's belief in a higher power, connection to nature, or feeling connected to all beings, spirituality can give you a sense of grounding, hope, and resilience when things are tough.
And reminds you that you're not alone. There's a force guiding you, supporting you, loving you unconditionally.
Absolutely. Another source talks about meaningful work and how hard it can be to find work that matches your values and talents.
It stresses how important it is to figure out what your gifts are and use them to contribute to the world.
To ditch those supposed tos that stop us from going after work that really matters, expectations and limitations we've internalized from family, culture, even our own self-doubt.
It encourages us to be brave enough to chase our passions, even when it feels risky or different.
And to let go of comparing ourselves to others. We each have our own path, and our worth isn't tied to our achievements or status.
It's about finding fulfillment in creating, contributing, connecting, not seeking validation or recognition from outside sources.
And realizing that meaningful work can be anything: a job, volunteering, raising a family, creative pursuits.
It's about doing something that matches your values, uses your talents, and makes you feel alive.
You shared a source about recognizing our shared humanity. It suggests that acknowledging how everyone suffers and feels inadequate at times can help us feel less alone.
It's so important. When you're feeling ashamed or inadequate, it's easy to think you're the only one.
But everyone feels that way sometimes. It's human.
And when we acknowledge that, we can let go of the shame and isolation that come with those feelings.
We can reach out, connect with people who get it, and remember that we're not broken or flawed, just human.
I think recognizing this shared humanity is essential for building compassion for ourselves and others.
When you acknowledge that everyone is fighting their own battles, you can treat everyone with more kindness, understanding, and empathy.
Now, we had these research findings you gave us, and they shed some light on the importance of wholehearted living too. One study found that not getting enough sleep is linked to all sorts of chronic diseases, like diabetes, heart disease, obesity, even depression.
It's a reminder that rest isn't a luxury. It's essential for both our physical and mental health.
We live in a culture that glorifies being busy and productive. But this research shows that neglecting our need for rest can really harm our health and happiness.
Another study said that perfectionism actually gets in the way of success, and it can often lead to depression, anxiety, addiction, and what Brown calls life paralysis.
That backs up what Brown's saying, that perfectionism is self-destructive. It stops us from living fully and authentically.
Time to let go of needing to be perfect. Embrace our imperfections and focus on progress, not perfection.
Definitely. And there was another study that discovered that using your talents to make a difference in the world can make you feel deeply connected to something greater than yourself. This speaks to how much we crave meaning and purpose in our lives.
It's about knowing we all have unique gifts to offer. When we share those gifts with the world, we feel fulfilled and connected.
Through work, relationships, creative things, helping others finding ways to connect our gifts to the world gives our lives meaning and purpose.
These research findings are strong evidence for embracing vulnerability, building resilience, letting go of perfectionism, and prioritizing rest and play.
They underline Brown's message that wholehearted living isn't a nice-to-have, it's essential for a healthy, happy, and fulfilling life.
As we look closer at these sources, I see patterns, connections that shed light on wholehearted living. One pattern is how vulnerability and resilience work together. Brown says vulnerability is where courage, compassion, and connection come from, but it can also be painful, uncomfortable. So how do we embrace vulnerability without being overwhelmed by fear, shame, or self-doubt?
That's the key question. I think it's about building resilience, that inner strength and flexibility to handle the challenges and setbacks that come with being vulnerable.
Resilience helps you be vulnerable without being paralyzed by fear. It's about knowing you're not going to get it right all the time. You'll make mistakes, face setbacks, get rejected.
But you also trust that you have what it takes to handle those things, to learn from them and come out stronger.
Resilience isn't about avoiding pain or discomfort. It's about learning to move through those emotions without letting them consume you.
It's understanding that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's strength, courage, authenticity.
And believing that even when things are tough, you have the inner resources to get through them and come out whole on the other side.
I'm also seeing this connection between authenticity and joy.
Brown says authenticity is about letting go of who you think you should be and embracing who you really are.
Living in line with your values, expressing yourself freely, doing work that matters.
And it's so interesting when you live authentically, when you're true to yourself, you often feel deeply joyful and fulfilled.
Authenticity lets you tap into your passions, creativity, your unique gifts. It frees you from trying to please everyone and fit in. It lets you experience the world with wonder, curiosity, and gratitude.
When you're living authentically, you're not wasting energy pretending. You're free to be yourself, explore your passions, create a life that truly reflects who you are.
And that freedom and self-expression often lead to deep joy and fulfillment.
Another recurring theme is the connection between letting go and gratitude.
Brown emphasizes letting go of perfectionism, numbing, scarcity, needing to be certain, comparing yourself, exhaustion, self-doubt, and the need to be cool.
She says real freedom comes from letting go of those things.
And when you let go of those limiting beliefs and behaviors, you often start feeling more grateful for what you already have.
When you let go of needing to control everything, you can start appreciating the beauty and abundance that's already in your life.
When you let go of needing to be perfect, you can celebrate your imperfections and appreciate your unique gifts.
And when you let go of comparing yourself to others, you can feel truly grateful for your own journey.
Letting go opens your heart to gratitude, to appreciating those simple joys in life, and to feeling peace and contentment right now.
These patterns show how interconnected all these ideas are, these guideposts for wholehearted living. It's not about mastering one thing in isolation. It's about cultivating a way of being in the world that embraces vulnerability, resilience, authenticity, joy, and gratitude.
It's a lifelong journey of self-discovery, growth, and connection. It takes courage, compassion, and a willingness to embrace the unknown.
So what are you taking away from all of this? What themes, quotes, or insights are sticking with you? What challenges are you facing on your own path to wholehearted living?
Take some time to think about it. How can you apply these ideas to your own life? Remember, it's not about perfection, but about progress.
It's about those small steps you take each day to cultivate courage, compassion, and connection, to create a life that reflects the real you. And remember, you are enough, just as you are. Now let's dive into those specific guideposts Brown outlines in The Gift of Imperfection. She gives us 10 guideposts for living a more authentic and courageous life. They're like signposts along the path to wholeness.
It's not just about taking in information. It's about putting these ideas into practice, making choices that match these guideposts, creating a life that reflects your values and lets you be your true self.
Each guidepost has stories, examples, and exercises to help you integrate them into your life. She's giving you the map and the tools for this journey.
Exactly. So, ready to explore these guideposts? Let's start with the first one. Cultivating authenticity, letting go of what people think.
It's all about finding the courage to be yourself, even when it's scary.
Brown emphasizes that authenticity is a practice, not a destination. It's about making a choice every day to show up as your true self, even when it feels risky.
And realizing that not everyone will like you, and that's perfectly okay. You can't please everyone all the time.
She even suggests that the fear of not being good enough is often what keeps us from being our most authentic selves. We're so worried about what others will think that we end up betraying ourselves.
It's like we're putting on a show for this imaginary audience, trying so hard to meet some external standard. But Brown says the only approval that really matters is your own.
She talks about setting boundaries and letting go of trying to control how other people see us.
And she encourages us to build relationships with people who value authenticity and support our journey toward wholeness.
It's about finding your people, the ones who see you for who you are and love you unconditionally.
And speaking of love, that leads us to the second guidepost, cultivating self-compassion, letting go of perfectionism.
This is a big one. Brown's research shows that perfectionism is a major roadblock to wholehearted living. It tells you you're only worthy if you're perfect.
And no one's perfect. So we end up feeling inadequate and ashamed, and that just feeds the perfectionism cycle.
Brown offers this powerful antidote to perfectionism, self-compassion, treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you'd give a good friend.
She breaks it down into 3 parts: self-kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness.
Self-kindness is about being gentle with yourself, especially when you make mistakes or things don't go your way. Common humanity is about recognizing that we're all imperfect, we all struggle and make mistakes. You're not alone in your experiences.
And mindfulness is about paying attention to your thoughts and feelings without judging them. Notice that inner critic and respond with compassion instead of self-criticism.
Brown makes it clear that self-compassion isn't about letting yourself off the hook or making excuses. It's about knowing that you are worthy of love and belonging, no matter your imperfections.
It's about cultivating inner peace and acceptance instead of always chasing some ideal you can't reach.
And that inner peace and acceptance are essential for building a resilient spirit, which takes us to the third guidepost.
Cultivating a resilient spirit, letting go of numbing and powerlessness. Here's where Brown gets to the heart of her work on shame and vulnerability. She talks about how we try to numb ourselves to avoid feeling those hard emotions, but in doing that, we also numb ourselves to joy and connection.
Like we're trying to protect ourselves from pain, but we end up shutting ourselves off from the good stuff too.
Brown wants us to develop healthier ways of coping with discomfort, like reaching out for support, practicing mindfulness, doing things that bring us joy.
She also talks about how important it is to recognize your own power, your ability to make choices and change your life.
She's saying, step out of that victim mentality and take back your power.
It's about knowing that you have the power to choose how you respond to challenges. You're not helpless in the face of adversity.
And that sense of empowerment is key for building gratitude and joy. Which brings us to our fourth guidepost.
Cultivating gratitude and joy. Letting go of scarcity and fear of the dark. Here, Brown explores focusing on what you have instead of what you don't have.
Shifting your perspective from scarcity to abundance, from fear to gratitude.
She talks about how gratitude can literally change your brain, your life.
And she wants us to develop a gratitude practice. Keep a gratitude journal, write thank you notes, just take a few moments each day to appreciate the good things in your life.
She also digs into the idea of joy, separating it from happiness, which can be fleeting and depend on what's happening around you.
Joy is deeper. It's a sense of contentment and connection that comes from within. It's about finding meaning and purpose, even when things are hard.
And it's about recognizing that joy is a choice, something you have to practice. It takes intention and effort.
Brown says, let go of the fear of the dark, the fear of vulnerability and uncertainty, and embrace the light of joy that's already inside you.
Trust that even when it's dark, there's always hope, beauty, something to be grateful for.
And that brings us to our fifth guidepost. Cultivating intuition and trusting faith. Letting go of the need for certainty.
Here, Brown talks about how important it is to listen to that inner voice, that gut feeling that tells you what's right, even if you can't explain it logically.
Trusting your own knowing, even when it goes against what everyone else is saying or doing.
And embracing uncertainty, letting go of the need to control everything, having faith that things will work out, even if you don't know how.
Brown encourages us to cultivate our intuition through practices like meditation, journaling, and spending time in nature.
She also talks about the importance of finding a spiritual practice that resonates with you, whether that's organized religion, nature-based spirituality, or simply a belief in something greater than yourself. It's about connecting to something bigger, something that gives you purpose, meaning.
And trusting that you're not alone, that something is guiding you, even when you can't see the way forward.
That trust and faith, those are so important for being creative. Which takes us to our sixth guidepost.
Cultivating creativity, letting go of comparison. This is where Brown says, embrace your unique gifts and talents. Express yourself. Don't be afraid of judgment or comparison.
She talks about how creativity helps us make meaning, how it lets you connect with your true self and share your unique perspective.
And she's clear that creativity isn't just about art. It's also about finding new solutions to problems, thinking outside the box, bringing new ideas to life.
She says, let go of the fear of not being good enough. Embrace the joy of creating, just for the sake of creating.
And she reminds us that comparing ourselves to others steals our joy. It's a trap that keeps us from appreciating what's special about us.
Focus on your own path, your own journey. Celebrate what you bring to the world.
She says creativity is like a muscle. You have to use it to make it stronger. The more you create, the more confident and joyful you become.
So what are some things you can do to be more creative? What makes you happy? What helps you express yourself authentically?
Take a minute to think about it. Maybe try a new recipe, write a poem, take a dance class, something simple.
The important thing is to give yourself permission to explore, to have fun. Creativity isn't about perfection. It's about expression.
And that leads us to our seventh guidepost. Cultivating play and rest, letting go of exhaustion as a status symbol and productivity as self-worth.
Brown hits on something huge here, how our culture worships busyness and puts so much pressure on us to always be productive.
She argues that play and rest are essential, not just something extra you squeeze in if you have time.
She talks about Dr. Stuart Brown's research, how play is so good for us physically, mentally, emotionally.
And she reminds us that rest isn't a sign of weakness or laziness. It's something you need to live a healthy, fulfilling life.
She says enough with this exhaustion as a status symbol, crap, myth. We need to prioritize rest and play.
It's about knowing that your worth doesn't come from how much you do, but from who you are.
She says schedule downtime, make space for spontaneity and joy, do things that nourish your soul.
Give yourself permission to slow down, unplug, reconnect with your inner child. Just be.
And that sense of being present, mindful, that's what helps us cultivate calm and stillness. Which brings us to our 8th guidepost.
Cultivating calm and stillness, letting go of anxiety as a lifestyle. This is where Brown talks about how much anxiety there is in our society.
She says we're so used to stress and overwhelm that it's become normal for us.
And she offers this really powerful antidote, cultivating calm and stillness.
She wants us to learn things that help us regulate our nervous systems. Things like meditation, yoga, deep breathing, spending time in nature.
And she talks about setting boundaries, saying no to things that drain you, creating space for solitude and reflection.
It's about slowing down, disconnecting from all that constant information, and reconnecting with that inner peace.
Learning that you don't have to be on all the time, that it's okay to rest, recharge, and just be.
And that inner peace and stillness that's essential for doing meaningful work. Which takes us to our 9th guidepost.
Cultivating meaningful work, letting go of self-doubt, and supposed to. This is where Brown explores how our gifts, our work, and finding a sense of purpose are all connected.
She talks about how important it is to figure out what your passions and talents are, and to find ways to make your work match your values.
She's clear that meaningful work doesn't have to come from a job. It could be raising kids, volunteering, making art, anything that aligns with your values and makes you feel like you have a purpose.
She wants us to let go of those supposed tos, the things that hold us back from doing work that truly matters to us.
It's about realizing that you get to define success. You can create a life that reflects your gifts and passions.
And it's about having the courage to chase those dreams, even when you doubt yourself or other people criticize you.
Brown says the only way to be truly fulfilled is to do work that lights you up, work that makes you feel alive.
Which brings us to our final guidepost, cultivating laughter, song, and dance, letting go of being cool and always in control.
Here, Brown says, embrace your playful side. Express yourself freely. Don't worry about judgment or embarrassment.
She talks about how laughter, song, and dance can transform you, how they connect you to your true self and the world around you.
She reminds us that you don't have to be perfect to enjoy these things. It's okay to be silly, goofy, awkward.
It's about letting go of needing to control everything and just being in the moment, enjoying the simple things in life.
Brown says, dance like nobody's watching. Sing your heart out. Love like you've never been hurt.
She's talking about getting back that childlike sense of wonder and joy, letting go of the need to be cool or in control.
It's about embracing this crazy, messy, beautiful journey with an open heart and an open mind.
These 10 guideposts, they give you a map for navigating the craziness of modern life and creating a life that's more authentic, joyful, and fulfilling. They remind us that wholehearted living isn't about reaching some perfect ideal. It's about embracing who you are, building your resilience, and showing up as your true self every day.
Now, you gave us some other articles and research that explore these ideas in more depth. One article that stood out was about recognizing our shared humanity. The idea that knowing everyone suffers and feels inadequate sometimes can make us feel less alone.
So important. When you're feeling down on yourself, it's easy to think you're the only one.
But it's not true. We all feel that way sometimes. It's part of being human.
And when we remember that, we can start letting go of the shame and isolation that come with those feelings.
We can reach out for support, connect with people who understand, and remind ourselves that we're not broken or bad, just human.
I think that's a big part of learning to be compassionate to ourselves and to others.
When you realize everyone is struggling in their own way, you can treat everyone with more kindness, understanding, and empathy.
And you gave us some interesting research on sleep. One study said that not getting enough sleep is linked to a lot of chronic diseases, diabetes, heart disease, obesity, even depression.
It's a wake-up call that rest is crucial, not a luxury. It's important for both our physical and mental health.
We live in a culture that celebrates being busy, but this research shows that neglecting our need for rest can have serious consequences.
It's time to start prioritizing rest and recognizing that it's a fundamental part of living a wholehearted life.
Absolutely. And you shared another study that found that perfectionism can actually hold us back from success. and often leads to depression, anxiety, addiction, and what Brown calls life paralysis.
That really supports Brown's argument that perfectionism is harmful. It stops us from living fully and authentically.
It's a great reminder to let go of the need to be perfect, embrace our imperfections, and focus on making progress, not achieving some flawless ideal.
And one more study that really stood out, it found that when we use our talents to contribute to something bigger than ourselves, it can make us feel deeply connected to something greater. This speaks to our need for meaning and purpose.
We want to feel like our lives matter, that we're making a difference.
It's about recognizing that we each have unique gifts to share, and when we share those gifts, we feel fulfilled and connected.
Whether it's through work, relationships, creative pursuits, or helping others, connecting our gifts with the world brings meaning and purpose to our lives.
You know, as we've gone through all these sources, it strikes me how interconnected these ideas are. It's not about mastering one thing in isolation. It's about creating a way of life that includes vulnerability, resilience, authenticity, joy, and gratitude.
Exactly. These principles are all woven together. They support each other. When you cultivate vulnerability, you build resilience. Embrace authenticity. You open yourself to joy. Let go of what's holding you back. You make space for gratitude.
It's a beautiful, intricate tapestry, isn't it?
It is, and we're all weaving it together.
Now, let's go back to something we talked about earlier, play. We mentioned Dr. Stuart Brown's research and how important play is, but let's dig a little deeper. What are some of the specific benefits of play that you've found in your research?
One of the biggest is that play helps us build resilience. Think about it. When we play, we often run into challenges and setbacks, but we learn to deal with those challenges in a fun, safe environment. We build problem-solving skills, learn to adapt, and get better at handling frustration.
Like a training ground for life's curveballs.
Exactly. And because play is inherently joyful, we start to associate positive emotions with overcoming obstacles. This can make us more likely to face challenges in other areas of our lives with a sense of optimism and confidence.
I can relate to that. When I'm stressed or feeling overwhelmed, taking a break to do something playful helps me shift my perspective and approach the situation with a fresh outlook.
Play also fuels creativity and innovation. When you play, you're free to experiment, to try new things, to think differently without the fear of judgment or failure. This can lead to new discoveries, breakthroughs, a sense of possibility.
It's like play unlocks that curious, imaginative, open-minded part of our brains.
Exactly. And it's not just about new ideas. Play can help you actually do something with those ideas. When you're in a playful state of mind, you're more likely to take risks, try things that might seem a little out there. This can lead to breakthroughs in your work, relationships, creative endeavors.
It's like play gives you permission to be more daring, to step outside your comfort zone.
And it's not just about individual benefits. Play can also strengthen relationships and build connection. When we play together, we create shared experiences, make memories, and develop a sense of camaraderie.
Think about how much laughter and joy there is when you're playing with friends or family.
It's contagious. And those shared moments of joy help us build strong bonds.
So play isn't just about having fun. It's about resilience, creativity, stronger relationships, and joy. It's vital for living a wholehearted life.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that play looks different for everyone. It's not just about games. It's about finding what brings you joy, what helps you tap into that childlike wonder.
For some people, it might be gardening. For others, playing music. For others, building things. The key is to find what works for you and make time for it.
I agree completely. Speaking of things that are essential for wholehearted living, let's talk about rest. We discussed the research on sleep deprivation and its negative effects, but what about the more subtle ways that a lack of rest can impact us?
That's a good question. I think one of the biggest impacts is on our emotional regulation. When you're sleep deprived, you're more likely to be irritable, short-tempered, reactive. It's harder to deal with stress, manage emotions, and maintain healthy relationships.
It's like your emotional resilience weakens when you're not getting enough rest. You're more prone to feeling overwhelmed, anxious, even depressed.
And it's not just our emotions. Lack of sleep affects how our brains work. It's harder to focus, remember things, make decisions, solve problems. Creativity and productivity suffer too.
Like your brain is running on empty, you just can't function at your best.
And don't forget the physical effects. Chronic sleep deprivation makes you more likely to get serious health problems like heart disease, stroke, diabetes, obesity.
It's clear. Prioritizing rest is crucial for our health and well-being. It's not just about feeling good, it's about protecting ourselves from serious health risks.
What are some practical things we can do to get more rest, especially in this always-on culture?
One of the most important is to have a regular sleep schedule. Try to go to bed and wake up at the same time every day, even on weekends. This helps regulate your body's natural sleep-wake cycle.
Creating a relaxing bedtime routine can help too. A warm bath, reading a book, listening to calming music, these can signal to your body that it's time to wind down.
Definitely. And make sure your bedroom is conducive to sleep. Dark, quiet, cool. Blackout curtains, a white noise machine, or a fan can help a lot.
And we can't forget about disconnecting from technology before bed. The blue light from screens can interfere with our sleep.
Put away all your devices at least an hour before bed.
These are all great tips. And it's not just about how much sleep you get, it's about the quality of sleep too.
If you're always waking up feeling tired, it might be a good idea to talk to your doctor to rule out any sleep disorders.
As we talk about play and rest, I'm seeing how they connect to Brown's message of wholehearted living. It's not just about taking care of yourself, it's about embracing a way of life that prioritizes joy, connection, and authenticity.
You're right. When we make time for play and rest, we're giving ourselves a break from the constant pressure to do more, achieve more. We're letting ourselves be to reconnect with ourselves, recharge, and experience joy.
And that, I think, is the heart of wholehearted living. Creating a life that's true to your values, that honors your needs, and allows you to show up as your most authentic self.
It's a journey unique for everyone, but ultimately it's about accepting our imperfections, building resilience, and living with courage, compassion, and connection.
What about you? What are your takeaways from this? What resonates with you? What challenges are you facing?
Think about it. What brings you joy? What makes you feel restored and energized? What little steps can you take today to create a life that's more aligned with your values and who you really are?
Remember, this is a marathon, not a sprint. It's about making small, consistent choices that support you and help you create a meaningful, fulfilling life.
And it's a journey worth taking, even when it's tough.
So true. You know, as we wrap up this deep dive into the gifts of imperfection, I keep thinking about one of the most unexpected and delightful takeaways: how important laughter, singing, and dancing are for wholehearted living. It seems almost too simple, but there's something really profound about it.
I know, right? At first it's like, really? But it makes so much sense. Brown is basically giving us permission to tap back into that pure joy we felt as kids.
Exactly. She calls these exercises in vulnerability because they make us let go of self-consciousness and embrace our true selves, even when it feels a little silly or awkward.
She even brings up Barbara Ehrenreich's book, Dancing in the Streets, A History of Collective Joy. It's all about this idea of collective ecstasy. Ehrenreich argues that we're wired for connection, and sharing joy with others is a basic human need.
And what better way to do that than through laughter, song, and dance? They're universal languages. They cut across cultures and connect us in this primal way.
Think about it. A shared laugh, a spontaneous dance party, singing at the top of your lungs, they melt away stress and remind us of the simple joy of being alive.
Brown challenges us to remember the last time we truly played, just for the fun of it, without worrying what we looked like or what people thought. We lose that childlike sense of wonder and spontaneity as we get older.
We get bogged down with responsibilities, deadlines, and the pressure to be grown up. But Brown's reminding us that play is not just for kids. It's important for everyone, no matter how old you are.
One of those other sources you gave us said that the opposite of play isn't work, it's depression. That really resonated with me. It shows how crucial play is for our mental and emotional well-being.
It's true. When we don't make time for play, we're missing out on joy, creativity, connection, and that affects us deeply.
So if you're feeling burnt out, stressed, or disconnected, maybe it's time to schedule some play into your life. Doesn't have to be anything fancy, just something that brings you joy and lets you be playful.
And you don't have to do it alone. As we talked about before, playing with others, whether it's friends, family, or even people you don't know well, can build bonds, create memories, and foster a sense of community.
Now, Brown doesn't just talk about play in a general way. She shares stories about how she rediscovered the joy of dance after years of avoiding it because she was self-conscious.
That story is so great. I can totally relate. We all have things we avoid because we don't want to be judged. But Brown's willingness to be vulnerable and step outside her comfort zone is so inspiring.
She's encouraging us to do the same. Find those things that light you up, even if they seem a little silly. Let go of needing to be cool and express yourself freely.
I think that's one of the most powerful things about Brown's work. The idea that real joy and connection come from embracing our imperfections and letting go of needing to be perfect.
It's about celebrating what makes you, you, your quirks, passions, vulnerabilities, recognizing that those are the things that make us human and help us connect with each other.
So as we finish up this deep dive into the gifts of imperfection and all the amazing insights we've learned from those other sources, I'm feeling really hopeful.
Me too. It's a reminder that we can create a more joyful, authentic, and connected life for ourselves and the people around us.
And it all starts with those small, brave choices.
What's one supposed to you can let go of today?
What's one small, brave thing you can do to get closer to that wholehearted life?
What's one thing that will bring more joy, connection, or authenticity into your life today?
Remember, it all starts with a single step.
Take that step and trust that you're already enough just as you are.